So today I want to talk about putting people first in our movements. The entire point of revolution is to reach a point where we maximize joy and minimize suffering for as many people as possible. Not just for ourselves, not just for our immediate community around us, but to hopefully reach a point where as many people as possible, in fact, all of humanity, reaches a point where we are able to again maximize joy and minimize suffering. And while we are on the journey to reaching that place, I think we need to remember that it's important to keep people in mind and think about that as a core philosophy while we make decisions for what is good praxis and what we are attempting to do. So, in order to talk about this, I actually want to take a section from Kropotkin's Conquest of Bread, and I want to share this with you. And then I want to talk about it from a modern perspective on how I feel we should be moving forward in terms of putting people first and continuing to pursue revolutionary ideas to reach our end goals. With that said, let's take a look at the section from Conquest of Bread. So this is taken from chapter 5 on food. So in section 1, Kropotkin spends a good amount of time talking about the failure of other revolutions for forgetting that bread or food was the primary thing that people desired and needed. He talks about how in 1848 the workers of Paris had 3 months of starvation and that the Commune in 1871 failed for similar reasons, and that the Commune at the end created communal kitchens, but it was ultimately too late. And from that point, I'd like to read moving forward. Bread, it is bread that the revolution needs. Let others spend their time in issuing pompous proclamations, in decorating themselves lavishly with official gold lace, and in talking about political liberty. Be it ours to see, from the first day of the revolution to the last, in all the provinces fighting for freedom, that there is not a single man who lacks bread, not a single woman compelled to stand with weariful crowd outside the bakehouse door, that happily a coarse loaf may be thrown to her in charity, not a single child pining for want of food. It has always been the middle class idea to harangue about great principles, great lies rather. The idea of the people will be to provide bread for all, and while middle-class citizens and workmen infested with middle-class ideas admire their own rhetoric in the talking shops, and practical people are engaged in endless discussions on the forms of government, we, the utopian dreamers, we shall have to consider the question of daily bread. We have the temerity to declare that all have a right to bread, and there is bread enough for all, and that with this watchword of bread for all, the revolution will triumph. That we are utopians is well known. So utopian are we that we go to the length of believing that the revolution can and ought to assure shelter, food, and clothes to all, an idea extremely displeasing to middle-class citizens, whatever their party color, for they are quite alive to the fact that it is not easy to keep the upper hand of a people whose hunger is satisfied. Now I want to point all this out because Kropotkin makes a very good point here. When people are not hungry, when people are satiated, they are in a place to learn more, to research more, to do more. And while Kropotkin here is speaking very specifically to his time period, he is speaking against theory itself as just a thing that we should just blindly follow. He's speaking to the principle that people come before the theory. They come before everything else. You know, there's other sections of Conquest of Bread where Kropotkin talks about how electoralism doesn't work and how it's a huge problem and how parliamentary procedures will never end up giving people anything. And I don't think he was able to predict the way that the capital class capitulated in certain ways to giving certain handouts to the working class to prevent revolution from happening. I think that in that understanding, we have to take Kropotkin's message, his meaning of the people come first, over any specific details. So I think when we move forward, we need to focus on ideas that are going to maximize the situation in which people are able to go with better situations while simultaneously pursuing our revolutionary ideas. And so that means even if we have to resort to something like electoralism or, the standard politics of the day to try to put forward concepts that are maybe social democrat, like maybe a UBI or Medicare for all, or heck, even a $15 minimum wage that might lift some people out of poverty, we should be supporting those endeavors as leftists. Anything that will ease the burden off of people and prevent them from starving, that will give them more time, more energy, more ability to care outside of their despair and suffering towards being able to listen to leftist ideas, to be able to maybe see a potential for even more than where they're at. When people are getting crumbs and are desperate, they have a tendency to reduce themselves to more reactionary positions. They have a tendency to suffer. And I don't think that it's mutually exclusive to advocate for something like a $15 minimum wage while still asking for the emancipation of people from wage labor. And those who receive $15 an hour and still are struggling in certain ways will start to question the system inherently. I don't think, like some of my fellow leftists have proposed, that it's some concept where if you end up, giving in and allying with liberals, that people will just get comfortable with the little bit that they're given. I think over time, people will realize that they need to keep fighting for more because the little pittance that they're given is not enough and often comes with strings attached. In the meantime, I think we as leftists need to start developing mutual aid systems, dual power networks, and creating institutions like maybe, housing situations, maybe some sort of land that people can build tiny homes on and work together, or having a food co-op, or running communal kitchens, or a food pantry, creating these types of alternative structures to feed children, to feed adults, setting up situations of communal childcare so that people who go to work don't have to deal with the actual situation of paying for extremely expensive childcare that they can't afford to pay for while trying to go to work. If we can create these alternative systems that don't come with the same strings attached and attach them to the ideas of raising the minimum wage, of proposing and asking for a UBI or any of the other number social democratic policies, I think we benefit as a society, and as people see that our institutions function just as well without the same strings attached, without the carrot on a stick, without the necessity of working for some boss or some other system, or without having to appeal to all sorts of, substandard compromises that don't really give us what we need at the end of the day, people will start to move over to leftist perspectives. But in the meantime, they will suffer less. They will suffer less than they typically do under neoliberal policies, and they will suffer less than they do under extremely fascist policies that maybe appeal to them on some sort of idea of they want or need to do something, but don't really give them any satisfaction at the end of the day for their actual needs, wants, and, desires. We need to start focusing on the fact that we can do both, that we can raise people up within the system and still pursue avenues of alternative methods. With that said, if you like this video, give it a thumbs up, hit the subscribe button and bell for notifications. You can follow me on Twitter and check out my Discord in the description below. My name is Anarchist Tara, and I hope you enjoyed watching.